Welcome to qnawire.
For this question, we're given a series of alcohols and we're asked how to prepare these alcohols using a Grignard reagent. And so we're going to start with A. So for A, we have 2-methyl-2-propanol. So if we draw the structure, we have propanol. So it's going to be 3 carbons, 2, meaning our alcohol is on the second carbon, and 2-methyl, meaning we have a methyl substituent also on the second carbon. Okay. So we see now that we have a tertiary alcohol. So to prepare using a Grignard reagent, we want to then start from a ketone. So if we draw the ketone, we see that we can then sever this linkage and add methyl magnesium bromide. And we also know that if 2 or more alkyl groups are the same, that we can use an ester, because an ester is going to add twice. So we see that we do have more than one of the same alkyl group. And so we could also imagine starting with an ester and then adding 2 equivalents of the following Grignard. Okay, and we're going to draw a retro arrow. Okay, and so these are the ways that we could prepare a Grignard starting with the alcohol in A. So let's move on to B. So in B, we have 1-methyl cyclohexanol. So cyclohexan means 6-membered ring. All means alcohol. And 1-methyl. So we have a methyl substituent in the 1 position. And so again, we see that we have a tertiary alcohol. And so then we want to start with a ketone. And in this case, we could imagine severing this bond and using methyl magnesium bromide. Okay, so we can move on to part C now. So for C, we see we have 3-methyl-3-pentanol. So pentan, a 5-membered chain, 3 all. So an alcohol at the 3 position, and 3-methyl, so methyl at the 3 position as well. So again, just as in parts A and B, we see we have a tertiary alcohol. So our first inclination then is going to be to start with the ketone. So we have our ketone. We can then imagine breaking this bond and reacting with methyl magnesium bromide. And we can also think about this as severing this bond. So we could also have a ketone, but this time it would be an asymmetrical ketone. That's ethyl magnesium bromide this time. And we also see that we have 2 symmetrical groups, 2 symmetrical alkyl groups about the carbon where our alcohol is located. So just as in part A, we could also imagine using an ester and then adding 2 BR. Okay. And so those are our options for making the following alcohol from 3-methyl-3-pentanol. So now we can move on to part D. So in D, we see we have 2-phenyl-2-butanol, so butan, that is a 4-membered chain, 2-ol, and 2-phenyl. So phenyl here. So again, just as in parts A through C, we have a tertiary alcohol. So then we know we want to begin by starting with a ketone. So we could imagine severing this bond and starting with the following ketone plus phenyl magnesium bromide. And we could also imagine breaking bonds in other places. So we could have 3 different variations of ketones because we have 3 different alkyl groups about our carbon containing the alcohol. So we could imagine this being our Grignard reagent, which would give us phenyl plus methyl magnesium bromide. Or we could imagine making this disconnection and starting with methyl magnesium bromide. Okay, so those are our choices for making alcohols, making the following alcohol. So now we're going to move on to E. So in E, we have benzyl alcohol. So this alcohol is quite different than the alcohols that we've looked at in parts A through C because now we have a primary alcohol. So when we see a primary alcohol, that should be a clue that we need to use an aldehyde as a starting material. So in this case, we could imagine breaking the following bond, making this disconnection, in which case the aldehyde that we would use would be formaldehyde. And then, we would imagine making this disconnection. Oops. Wrong again. I was right the first time. Sorry, this disconnection. In which case, we would use formaldehyde, and then we could use phenyl magnesium bromide. And this is only going to add once into our aldehyde. And so this is how we could achieve benzyl alcohol. So now finally in part F, we have 4-methyl-1-pentanol. So pentan, that's 5-1-ol. So I'm going to make this carbon 1 and 4-methyl. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so again, just as in part E, we see we have a primary alcohol, and that should be a clue for us that we need to start with an aldehyde. So then we can imagine making the following disconnection. So again, we use formaldehyde, which is just a 1-carbon aldehyde, and using the following Grignard reagent. I'm just going to make sure that I have all of my carbons correct. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this